say, how many of you stayed up watching the game last night? So hopefully we're off our grogginess and we've all had our coffee. But I'm excited to have a conversation this morning with both of you. Thankful that I've known Marty for a number of years. He actually chaired the board of the Metro Atlanta Chamber recently and actually hired me to do the job that I'm doing today. So
that's why you're so fantastic, actually. So,
so I either owe it all to you or I owe it all to you.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
We'll see where that goes.
I the latter, but yes.
And then, of course, Ben has been in our community here in Atlanta for a long time, building a company, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we're also a customer of Ben's. I don't know if you knew that. Business. You're welcome. They help us communicate with Metro Atlanta and the world, so we're very thankful for that as well.
Hello, Atlanta.
So, hello. And so what I want to do is just to make a few remarks about Metro Atlanta, and really because we want to center on the ecosystem here, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and how it's really kind of grown over the last many years. And to our MCs, yes, this is not 2019, this is not 2020, but we have a number of disruptive startups in our community. We also have a number of unicorns that seem to be birthed every week. And our innovation and entrepreneurship here in our community is thriving. So we have $2 billion plus in VC that has flowed to startups in our region just in the first half of 2021 this year. So this is an exciting place to be if you're growing a company. And that number matches all of the money raised in 2020. So we're already on pace to outperform, which I love to be able to announce. We also thrive in the corporate innovation space as well, and I know Marty's going to touch a little bit about that. We have 40 innovation centers, corporate innovation centers here in Metro Atlanta. And so we are proud to partner with all of those organizations, and also proud to say that this is Innovation Week, and I tell our team it's really Innovation Month because we're here to tell the narrative and the story of Metro Atlanta, our entrepreneurs, our founders, our corporations, our higher education system. So with that, I'd love to have a conversation with both of you. So Ben, I want to start with you because I think your story is something that is really unique and interesting for this community to hear about. Let's go back to the beginning of MailChimp. Why did you make the decision to bootstrap? I hope all you know that. And then how did you actually scale through that process? And any lessons that you may have learned through that process?
We don't have enough time to talk about all that. We're talking, so I started MailChimp back in April 2000. So I think that in all humility, the decision to bootstrap, I think that decision was made for me. So we started in April 2000, like I said, that was the time of the .com bust. So I got laid off. That's what made my decision. So there was no, I started the company with my the severance check that I got. There was no investment money to be had. Even if I wanted it, I couldn't get it. Furthermore, we started as a web design agency. No, you're not going to get a VC firm investing in a web design agency. It wasn't until about 2007 when we pivoted to MailChimp. By then, we were profitable. We were growing fast. Nobody was really into, SaaS was new. So, the few investors who did fly over to Atlanta back then, I had to explain what SaaS was. I had to explain, furthermore, why we would build a SaaS company focused on small business. There's no money in small business, we all thought.
There's no small businesses in the United States.
Right. There were two companies ever that cared about small business, MailChimp and Intuit, right? So that's what they would tell me. I remembered that. And so there was just, even if I wanted it, there would be no way I could get investment money, so.
I think that was an interesting statement that you said, that the decision was made for you.
Right.
So in the early 2000s, that's just interesting. And when you consider where we are today, it's a very different look and feel.
We would not have an event like this.
No, not at all. Marty, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's how typical, decades later, the overnight success, right? And what everybody here is trying to do is create situations so Ben doesn't have to do that anymore, right? I've been here, 15 years now. To see this ecosystem evolve the way it has is just actually extraordinary. And those that aren't in Atlanta, I'd hurry up and get here because there's a lot going on. And from the startup, all the startups here, the great universities that we have here, the corporate engagement here, and it's all about the ecosystem. And Ben really was at the forefront of helping make that happen. And it won't take that long next time.
So you mentioned that you moved here about 2005, which is about the beginning of when MailChimp may have been thinking about pivoting. So Marty, though, Invesco is an Atlanta success story. It was created here in the late 1970s, and then you came here in 2005. I think, was it from California that you came?
I did, yes.
And then, so thinking about Invesco, how has Invesco perhaps fueled innovation in this area? But also would love to hear your thoughts on, when you came from California to Georgia, what did it look like, and what did you see as opportunities?
Yeah, and for everybody in the room, being at a corporation like this is really boring. I know that. So, but you do have to innovate, or you're in trouble. So, so for example, what I'd say right now, the investment management is going through dramatic change. It's once in a generation change. So, regardless of that, every single company has to continue to understand where their clients are going. If you don't, you're in trouble, and that's foundational to what we do. So, for example, today we manage about $1.5 trillion. When I came, it was $400 billion. What's interesting underneath that, we bought a little company, an ETF company, had $1 billion under management. Today, that ETF part of our business and the related indexing is $500 billion. It's bigger than the company was when I came here. Another example would be, we all talk about China, second largest economy in the world, and you talk about the challenges, geopolitical challenges, which are real and meaningful, but it's the second largest economy in the world. So today, Invesco is the largest money manager managing money in China for Chinese, $100 billion. When I joined, it was about $1 billion. And the pace of it is amazing. I'll make one more comment then stay, and it comes back into innovation. So the digital platforms we've gotten involved in, the idea for us came 5 years ago when I was in China with some colleagues, and you saw what the Chinese were doing with mobile digital technologies and financial services. It was shocking. So far ahead of the United States, and every American thinks we're on the forefront of everything. Guess what? We're not. And it sort of scared us enough to really start to get into this space. So the real point is eyes wide open, understand where your clients are going, constantly challenge yourself, and jump on the opportunities. And they don't all work, by the way. So you got to be ready to fail.
So I think it's interesting. So you were talking about that growth strategy, and that growth strategy was really about acquisition and bringing in this new technology, which is part of the ecosystem, right? If you have innovation that is producing in your ecosystem, then that gives those customers or those corporations an opportunity to grow through the innovation that is occurring. So Marty, I know that you've been engaged with, that's actually, it's funny, engaged with Engage. Yeah. Would you share with this group what Engage is and why it's important in this ecosystem?
Yeah, and I'll say it's probably one of the most fun things that I've been involved in my career. So there has been many different, 40 innovation centers here, and et cetera, et cetera. So there's many different avenues of really this development, and the Chamber and Katie have been extraordinarily involved in driving that. Engage came together with 14 companies, and you can, I know no one's staring at their phone, but Google Engage Ventures, you can find out who they are. They're all the obvious suspects in town, in partnership with Georgia Tech and ATDC. And the idea was to develop this ecosystem for the corporations, get them closer to the startups. And so there's a fund that we're all invested in, but frankly, it's the innovation that we have what we call a quarterback from each company matched off with one another. And we're understanding what is each company doing. We're all in different industries. We're all doing different things, but we're learning from each other. And so it's this ecosystem that's really quite amazing. And it's been successful beyond my belief already. So what do you care about if you're a startup? Yes, you want some money, but what I've told people, it's not the money, it's really the ecosystem. And it is really helping create product development with these large corporations. And if you look at the board of Engage is largely the CEOs of these companies. So it sends the message into the system within the organization. Guess what? Don't get this new product stuck in the purchasing department, okay? There's something here. There's been something like almost 100 contracts in the last 4 years. Any other company that's involved in it would say it's one of the really good things that we're doing, not just for the company, but also for Atlanta. And it's just been fascinating. So and again, it's just one of many good things here in Atlanta. And so, as I said earlier, if you're not here, I'd hurry up and get here.
Man, I'm so glad you moved here from California. Lucky to have you.
Well, we love being here. But I will say that it was living in California where you learn, when you're in the middle of it in San Francisco, you didn't know it was the ecosystem, it's just what it was.
Right.
And you have to be somewhere else to understand it. So
let's tease that out then.
Yeah.
Because Ben, you built the company when the ecosystem was not strong in this community. You were able to scale.
Right.
And so when you think about the size of MailChimp now and where this community is as an ecosystem, what is the value of having that homegrown large company here, and how does that impact the future growth of the ecosystem?
Yeah, like I said earlier, there was no ecosystem at all. I mean, back then, 20 years ago, if you said you were starting up a tech company, people would say, "I'm so sorry." Oh, what would compel you to do that? It was kind of dismal for tech companies back then. And you know, it was always on our minds, like, how can we build an ecosystem in Atlanta? And my approach was like, ecosystems are made of people, made of great, innovative, courageous leaders. And so I felt that all that I could do, my way of contributing, was try to build a great big company full of great leaders who could then someday go off and start their own companies. So, you know, hopefully that happens here in a few years. I'm seeing it thrive so much now. I wish we had something like this back then.
Yeah.
It's so amazing.
It's very impactful for our region to be able to showcase all of the great companies that are growing here, and to be able to match that funding mechanism with them as too. But equally as important as customers. I think you all know that as well. And customers, I hope, Ben, from your perspective, was that a plus for you as you were building that company here in town? How did that corporation or the companies that were here help fuel your growth?
I mean, I think that we were a small business company, so our customers were global, all over the place. And Atlanta's a perfect place to build a global brand. I mean, look who we're surrounded with, right? Coca-Cola, UPS, Chick-fil-A. Who else is here in Atlanta? I mean, it's just Delta. I mean, it's an amazing, amazing
You really
city.
want me to rattle off?
Yeah, please. Yeah, this is your chance.
We've got 16 Fortune 500 companies. We've got 31 Fortune 1000 companies. 40 corporate innovation centers, 300,000 full-time students, 60 universities. Okay, y'all get the chamber pitch.
So,
But hopefully that shows you.
does anybody know what Katie does? I can't imagine, so.
I mean, I felt like for somebody like me who was trying to build a global brand, a lovable brand, Atlanta was the perfect place to. And we have the creative community, the music industry, the film industries here now. I mean, it's just the perfect place to build a brand.
I'm pleased that you mentioned that, because I think of founders as creative individuals. Right. You see a problem, you're figuring out how to solve the problem, and then you have to creatively think about how to build that company and move it forward. And the creative class is really important to fostering that innovation. And here's you another chamber stat, with Georgia being the #1 state for film production, in the U.S. Sorry, California. We are bringing in and creating that class of individual that really drives this innovation economy. So I'm glad to hear you say that, and I'm sure that you've got a number within MailChimp that folks here might like to join their teams. As you've created this great human capital.
You know, when you mentioned the film industry, I remember one summer we had interns from the film industry, the special effects world, come in and do some amazing graphics works for us. I mean, it's just great to have that all right here in the city.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Well, let me ask you one more question, because you've recently gone through an opportunity with Intuit. And so, just a small one. But thinking forward, that's where you are in 21. What made you stay for the last 20 years or so in Atlanta?
The weather? I mean, I felt no reason to leave Atlanta. I could build a global brand just like all the other global brands. How many were there again? All the global brands that are here in Atlanta. I mean, there was no reason for me to leave. And there were times when I would go out to the West Coast. You know, I would go to the TechCrunch Disrupt conferences, and it was a lot of positive energy out there. But I would remember talking to people, you know, what kind of business are you starting? And they would say, I am building the Twitter of music, or the Uber for libraries, or this for the, and I would say, but what about the business though? And it just felt like it was a lot of like, I don't know, it was just a little superficial or something.
I was there during that dot-com boom.
You were there?
Yeah, at the beginning and at the end, and it was just, the company I was working, another money manager, people are leaving in droves because, I can go start a new company and, I'm a millionaire in no time. And by the way, clients matter, revenue matters, earnings matters, and a lot of it disappeared. Fell off a cliff.
Yeah, so it felt like, whenever I would come back to Atlanta from some of those visits, I just felt like this was a great place to build a solid, long-lasting company.
Yeah.
So Marty, let's talk a little bit, because one of the pieces of the ecosystem is our higher education system that I just rattled off the stats about. And Marty, that's a key piece of Engage, is the connectivity to the higher education system here. Talk about why that is relevant and why that's important.
Well, when we were getting Engage going, we're sort of banging our head against the wall of, how do you get this started without spending a lot of money on other things and, creating a fund and getting invested? And so that was difficult. And light bulb went on, and I reached out to Bud Peterson at Georgia Tech. He was the president at the time. And there you go. Here's our answer. And, ATDC, so using their platform is what's got us started at Engage. And I think the other thing that was really important, Engage is for profit, right? And it was very direct with the people that participated. Don't go ask corporations for another donation. Get it so it's for profit and it can hold its own. But and Bud Peterson was just absolutely phenomenal. He's still on the board at Engage, but then it's reaching out in the greater community. As you say, the university environment is just very, very powerful. And it's a huge asset to not just Engage, but everybody in this room. And whatever you want to do, you can find that talent here.
That is the wonderful story here that I think underpins that creative class, but also that innovation and that tech talent that supports all of this growth here. And truly, I think we talk a lot about Georgia Tech as being that kind of flagpole or tent pole that's right here. But the fact that we have so many other great universities such as SCAD and our HBCUs, which are producing diverse talent on a daily basis, it benefits all sizes of companies. And I think that's a unique position here in Atlanta, is that diversity that we offer. So I want to ask both of you, what makes Atlanta a great place? I may have just stole your thunder, but what makes it a great place to start and run? Because I think that's important, because you can start a company, but being able to actually run have a balance sheet and have earnings and those types of things, and actually have a good board that is helping to grow that company. So maybe, Ben, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to you, Marty.
I think you actually did mention it's the creative culture that we have in this city, the music industry, the film industry, SCAD, Georgia Tech. I mean, it's an amazing city filled with diversity and creativity. And that's what makes it, you just get just like an unlimited supply of talented, creative people. What makes it a great place to run your business? I mean, I think there's a lot less hype. It's a lot more substance here. And you can concentrate and build a business that you want to build and you want to run your way. I felt that. And I think it's generally a business-friendly place to start. So.
Yeah, you're right. So all the foundational elements are there, but what I found very unique when I came from California many years ago, I've never seen a more engaged community, right? So I'll start from where I started in the business community. You're sort of obligated to participate, and in many different levels. And I've never seen that to that degree anywhere else. But it creates all this connection again, right, through the businesses, the universities, just what's happening in the city. Katie will talk about the chamber's probably one of the best in the country, if not the best. And people are hands in the air, and you got to get after it. So it's a pretty special place, and it bodes very well if you want to be successful here.
So we mentioned at the beginning unicorns, which is a term that this room knows really well, and we've seen a number of them just in the last 6 months here in our ecosystem. But Ben, you actually grew the company for 20 plus years. You made the decision to sell to Intuit. Is that the right word? But yet the company is still going to be in Atlanta.
That's right.
And so would love to hear what's next. Like, what does that really mean for MailChimp with the sale to Intuit? What does it mean for Atlanta?
Well, first of all, I'll say a few months ago when Sasan Guzarzi, the CEO of Intuit, and Alex Chris, their EVP, came over to talk to me for the first time in real life, I think half the questions they asked were about MailChimp, and the other half was about Atlanta, the city. I mean, they were really excited to see all these other tech companies coming over, like Microsoft building a campus, Twitter, Square, everyone is coming, it seems like, right? And so they were super excited about this possibly being one of their Atlanta hubs, and now that the deal is announced, it's going to be one of their biggest cities. So they're looking to double down here in Atlanta with us. And for me, I just couldn't be more excited about this.
So what does it mean for you? You're
You know,
staying, that's what I mean. Like, you're going to stay and help continue the growth of the company.
That's right. I'm still the CEO. I have told
Right.
people this is not an exit for me. I still love this business, and I'm still here to run it. And I've likened this to a jet refueling midair. You know, it flies up behind the tanker, and the hose comes out, and it refuels, and then it goes on to complete its mission. That's how I feel this partnership with Intuit is. So I'm more excited than ever to keep expanding MailChimp.
That's what I love about this story, is this really is growth for MailChimp. This is the opportunity to just kind of infuse, put it on steroids, and let MailChimp grow another 20 years and continue to foster that for small businesses, because that's still your core business.
Yeah, it's like we got funding or something.
Small
A
thing.
little bit?
A little
maybe?
bit.
Okay.
But that was because of 20 years of hard work. So, so Marty, how about for you? We've got the acquisition here that's happened. You are continuing to grow through mergers and acquisitions. What does this community need to know? It's a room full of entrepreneurs and investors. What do you think is most important for them to know about Atlanta?
I think we all know these foundational elements we've been talking about, right? The education, the talent, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I've never seen a more engaged community that really cares about the success, and the attention to the startup environment and the nurturing of the growth of small businesses is palpable. And I was talking about, just look at the corporations. Could you imagine Microsoft and Square and Google and everybody else 10 years ago saying, we're going to Atlanta? It really wasn't a thought. I can promise you that, and I didn't have those conversations, but I'm sure that's it. So there's a lot going on here, and what I like is that it's a really open place. You show up, you get sucked into Atlanta. If you want to participate, you're gonna participate, and all these innovation flowers that are coming out of the ground, they don't compete with one another. They know every one of them makes us better, and I think that's pretty unique in this environment too. So it's a good place to be, and it will continue to be.
Okay, so we're at Venture Atlanta. This is a conference about how to get investment into this community. So what would, I want advice from both of you, what would you say to the investment community and or a founder who thinks that they have to go outside of Atlanta to get funding? I believe there's been a mind shift in probably the last 5 years, but I would love to hear each of your thoughts on venture or funding in general. Ben, we'll start with you.
You know, results may vary, but I did not go out looking. I focused on trying to build as great a company as I could, and once we got some momentum, we've got a big airport. It was easy for them to fly over. So the advice that I would give is do your best to build something great first, and then attract them over. You're not going to convince them. Just build something amazing that they can see that they want a piece of. And that's what you see in a lot of the businesses like Calendly, Full Story, all these great stories that we have coming out of Atlanta. They built something great and people came to them.
Yeah, look, success builds success. And I think if you had this conversation 3-5 years ago, it was still an uphill battle, right? It feels like we're at the top of the mountain going down the other side right now. And Blake Patton, who probably a number of you know, who runs Engage for us, another Georgia Tech graduate, and I think there are other people than Georgia Tech that are involved.
I'm an Auburn engineer. Does that count?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
We'll take anything different for diversity. So, but the feedback he's had when people call in to try to, what is this Engage thing? It's like, really? Why would we come there? And guess what? Not so bad. There's some really good examples of it. So.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now with the larger tech brands that are now coming to Georgia, they're coming to Atlanta, they're not exporting the talent out to wherever their headquarters is, I think is a real inflection point for Atlanta's ecosystem and something we have to pay attention to. And I think it's a great story to be able to tell. I would love to be able to ask you, Ben, a lot of founders in the room and entrepreneurs, were there any lessons learned for you along the way that you would share with this group, considering that you've been on this journey for a while?
Oh my God, we have 4 minutes left.
We do. You can do it in 4.
Yeah, exactly. All yours, Ben.
How do I condense? You know, oh my God. Lessons learned along the way. You know, I really loved building my business here in Atlanta. I did it my way. Like I said, results may vary, but one of the things that, 20 years looking back, the most fulfilling thing that I can say about all of this is not even the exit. It's really that we were able to build a great business and we did it our way. And we just wanted to really prove to the world that you can build a great, successful, world-class, lovable brand and treat people right and not be a-holes. You could be ruthless without being an a-hole, right? That's what we would say. And so, I am just so proud of that we've achieved that. So, I mean, what advice would I give people? I mean, just...
How about building your board?
What's a board? I don't know.
Yeah, well, okay, see? So that's part of... I think that's an important point.
I think I'm going to have to learn what a board is really soon. But that would be an important thing to do. I mean, I had always thought about building an advisory board, and it was one of my goals for this year. I think technically I achieved that goal. I have a board now. But so, yeah, you want a bunch of really good mentors and advisors, and I've always had that in Atlanta. Executives from Coca-Cola, from UPS. I always had people that I could go out and talk to. And they gave me all kinds of advice about what to do, what not to do. It's been invaluable over the years.
Okay, so let's play off of that, Marty, because you're in that role. You're kind of on that opposite side of the sheet there, where you could be providing mentorship, or the corporations that are here. So what is the role of the corporate community here to help foster this ecosystem to continue to thrive?
I'll answer that question. Let me make a point. I worked for 3 founders in my career, and you learn a lot working for founders. They truly are special people because you're driven in a very special way. But John Temple in particular was a famous money manager, and I probably learned as much from him as anybody. And what did I observe? Persistency was extraordinary. Being persistent matters. The other thing that I observed was I've never seen a person do their homework more than John Templeton. Study, study, study. He would then get in a room and ask endless questions as if he hadn't even known what the topic was in the meeting. I would watch him change his view with a new set of information, a new set of facts, and that is sort of what I observed of one famous founder.
Get out of my head, man.
How about that?
Yes.
What can I say? So the role of corporations, I think, and I give Katie and the Chamber a lot of credit because it keeps the corporations, deeply involved in the community. And, from my perspective, and again, I've said it, the corporations here are naturally involved in the community in a very unique way. I think what this ecosystem is sort of retraining the large corporates, and that's why you have, the CEO level involvement and, the various startup, whether it be the innovation centers or things like Engage. And they're sending the message through their organization. This is a different day and time. If we're not in front of this, it's another stair step of technology change. It's a dangerous time if you're not open-minded and understanding where the world's going, where your clients are going.
Well, and especially as we work through a pandemic, or maybe post-pandemic, innovation, I believe, is going to remain key to growth for all companies. And so if you have a thriving startup ecosystem, you have a thriving founder community, you have a great higher education system, and then you have, just that community all working together. That's really where that special sauce is here in Atlanta. And we need to really build upon that innovation piece to be successful. So with that, I want to thank both of you for your time on stage today. I enjoyed it. I could sit here and keep talking, which is not a surprise to my team. So want to thank you, and I believe that we are going to head to our next panel, so our next event. Thank you.
See you, buddy.